So welcome to the South Carolina Trade Talk podcast. I'm Dr. David DePlace, faculty at the Tommy and Victoria Baker School of Business at the Citadel. Welcome, Stovall Wittee, on our podcast. Stovall is here today. He's an independent consultant who specializes in process improvement. He has worked in many multinational firms and has helped achieve a great potential when facing multiple challenges. Stovall is a former U.S. Army personnel officer, a graduate of the Citadel, and has an International MBA from the Darla Moore School of Business at South Carolina.
Well, thanks, David. I appreciate you for having me on.
No, this is great. So process improvement is a topic when it's pretty often missed by companies. We really think ahead and think about exporting or doing business internationally. So tell us a little bit how that affects international ventures.
Sure. Well, process improvement is really just the specialization of examining a company, its operations, in order to measure how it can be more efficient and how to implement new strategies. Some people define it can define it as a company's culture or a set of tools that they use to further on to their goals. But really, process improvement is something that's gonna need to happen every time there's a big change in your organization. So, you think of acquisitions, you think of bringing in a new partner or providing a new product to customers. Those are all situations where process improvement is going to come into play.
Great. So obviously everybody wants to produce the best possible product or service, and obviously working to control costs. And this is really certainly very important for businesses who are looking at committing to international operations, whether it be sending stuff out. So tell us a little bit about how the approach of process improvement really affects a firm on an everyday basis.
Yeah. It's very important. And, you think about South Carolina and the strategic position that we're in when it comes to international trade. We have the upstate centrally located between Charlotte and Atlanta, which are major hubs, and we have the advantage of the port. But as economic fluctuations will happen, process improvement is going to become more important. And there's really four areas that I would suggest to South Carolina companies that they look into when it comes to process improvement, in order to just sort of set the groundwork of things that they can do to work on their inefficiencies and create value in hard economic times. So the first one is dedicate resources to self-examination. That's essentially what you'll see is a lot of larger firms will have entire teams dedicated to process improvement. So you'll see them labeled as either strategy teams or even as literal process improvement, depending on their different section of whatever the company's doing. So you see that's one way to go about it. Other strategies include bringing in third parties, such as consultants, to come look at your processes, and that can get a little expensive. So you might want to consider keeping it more in-house. But depending on the issue, it might vary which direction you want to go. So consider that. The second thing is be able to explain your processes. One of the things that I've seen out there, and that'll really amaze you, especially as a former military officer, where we have a manual for literally every job that is in the military of what they're specifically supposed to be doing. You'll be amazed how many major firms and very successful companies, mind you, will not have any written down processes about how they do their work. And it becomes a drag, especially when you think about things such as bringing on new employees that don't have any written manual to say, hey, this is how you are supposed to go through the work and how it relates to other parts of the company. So really be able to explain your processes, also because it's useful when you're dealing with bringing on new partners or presenting to new customers. If you can show them, or investors even, saying, hey, here's how we do it. And you can have different versions depending on who you're showing it to, but this is how we do it. And it's such a useful tool, and it's so basic, but a lot of people don't even have their processes written down. Third, you really need to detail your process in order to pinpoint areas for improvement. So for process improvement guys like myself, one tool that's really helpful is something called a process map, which essentially takes all the steps in your process and lays them out on a two-dimensional plane in order to represent, here's how each individual thing will come into play and what needs to happen first in order for this step that this team does to handle, what are sort of the precursors to that. And it shows relationships between teams. And this can be done for any process that your company does, big or small. And that includes even multinational teams and how they all relate to each other. So using a tool like that, and there's a number of other tools out there that guys like me know about, that you can go through to help identify problems in order to fix these inefficiencies. You really want to detail your process out so that you can figure out what are my real pain points and what's the real cause of that. And I've seen examples out there, David, where you'll have a product that's going through the product life cycle, and it'll be 3 or 4 months in, and they're working on a project, and then one little thing that could have been caught at the beginning will send it right back straight to the negotiation phase. And it can become a big headache for managers. So you really want to detail your process, something in a tool like a process map, in order to find and fix those inefficiencies. And then the fourth thing that I really want to point out to South Carolina companies is, and a common theme that I've seen out there, is don't just assume that some new tool or product is just, or team even, is going to just fix the problem. I have seen examples out there of companies employees who say, oh, well, once we get this new tool in order to measure this, then we'll be able to not have to deal with this problem anymore. And sometimes that it's good and it's important. You've had guests on your show before that have talked about things such as data integrity and getting all of the big analytics together in order to make smart decisions. And that's very important, especially when you're trying to measure your KPIs. But sometimes in that process, if you create a new process to add on top of that, you just end up doubling the amount of work that you expect from your employees, and they're not focused on the critical aspects of their job going forward. So you need to take a powerful look, and it happens all the time. They implement something, it's supposed to be the next greatest thing, and either the employees don't know how to use it, or it just creates more work. It can be a problem. So you need to focus on understanding your processes going forward in a process improvement mindset to make sure that when you make a change, it sticks and it's going to be good going forward.
Yeah, I actually think the fact that you actually are bringing it back to that mindset, I think quality of product and services really starts with this idea that you got to start by knowing and then wanting to improve your processes, regardless of the motivation behind it. You first have to start knowing what your issue, your problem, or your gap might be. Stovall, really, we appreciate you taking the time today to share your expertise on the topic, and then certainly sharing what some people may have learned here on this podcast and our subscribers. So on behalf of the South Carolina International Trade Coalition, folks, we thank you for joining us on this podcast. Stovall, again, thank you very much for your time.
It was a pleasure being here.
And then we hope that you will join us on another version or episode of our podcast in the months to come. Have a good day.
Bye.